A few weeks ago, one of my fellow dog trainers asked me for some help, and she was really concerned about her website, in particular the design. She was worried about where the navigation was on the website, like where all the links were to the other pages. And we talked about it, and it was really important to her. And I told her, I looked at her site again, and I said, everything looks pretty good. Like the layout is good. It looks professional. It's written well. It's going to pull people in. It's working for you. There's no problems with it. The design is just like a personal preference thing at this point. If you just like the way it looks differently than another way, it's really just up to your personal preference. It's really not going to have a big effect on your business and how many clients you get. And I see this over and over a lot of times where we get obsessive or we fixate on these little things that really make no difference in whether or not we're going to get enough clients. It's more of just the kinds of things that we just get obsessive over because they're creative and we've worked so hard on them, and we get hung up on those things when there are a whole bunch of other things that we might unknowingly be ignoring that are way more important, that matter the most, really. It's if you are worried because you have a ding on your car or there's something like slightly off with the paint, but you're ignoring the fact that you have 3 flat tires. The paint might be important to you, but that's not the most important thing if the car is just not going to go anywhere. And that's the way a lot of these things are that we're talking about in these videos, that these are the most important things, that if you don't have them in place, you're just not going to go anywhere. You can't move. So that's what you need to focus on first before you start worrying about little things like dings and the paint and like the size of lines on your website and the overall where you put a picture and where the links are and all that stuff. The kinds of things that we tend to get overly worried about that don't really matter that much. In these videos, we're talking about those things that do make the most difference. It's the foundation stuff like the tires, the engine, the transmission. And again, if you don't have them, it doesn't matter how the paint looks, you're just not going to go anywhere. In the first video, we talked about understanding your ideal clients, knowing how their minds work, the way they think, what they want. And that's something that's really essential to any business. Everybody always talks about that because it's so important to really completely understand how your potential clients think. And then in video 2, we talked about how to communicate with them effectively, how to describe what you offer, how to communicate in writing better, especially like your website content, how you describe your programs, how you really just communicate to your ideal clients what they're going to get in the end from working with you, and not just how you do it and what's included. Now in this video, we're going to be talking about a really very neglected aspect of being a dog training business owner, and that's how to get people to like you and trust you and feel so comfortable with you that they'll pick you over any other trainer. So here's a great story of the power, as an example, that likability can have in your business. I have a really good friend in Florida, and we are actually in Australia again now, so I'm not near her and I can't help her with her dog, unfortunately. So she has a dog that has been giving her some trouble with some resource guarding and aggression, and has bitten a couple of the people in the house. And so she needs some help with this dog, and she let me know that she was, struggling against this decision about what to do with her dog. And then I found out, before I could even really help her be able to recommend a trainer that I knew could help her, that her daughter was going to pay for the trainer. And she and her daughter together had found a trainer, and that they wanted to use this trainer and just go ahead and give this trainer a shot. So I was a little surprised because one of her best friends is a dog trainer, and the way I would have helped her pick somebody as a dog trainer, she had asked me for advice on how to go about choosing the best dog trainer for her situation, was totally different than how she made the decision as the dog owner. So if it was me helping her pick out a dog trainer and we had a little more time to do that together, then I would have asked trainers about their experience with dealing with situations like hers and the behaviors that her dog had, and I would have wanted to see testimonials and success stories with similar situations, and I would have wanted to know about the training methods and all of these things. I would have looked at their website and analyzed it from a marketing expert side of things as well, and they even know how to describe what they do, because that's just me. That's what I would look for. But that's not what she looked for as a dog owner, and this was telling because this is very typical of dog owners in a lot of cases, the way she actually ended up making the decision. So a lot of times dog owners don't have the background knowledge to know what to look for in a dog trainer when they're choosing one, so they go with their gut in the same way that a lot of people go with their guts when they're making buying decisions. So here's how this went. I talked to her about the dog trainer that she'd been in touch with, and I didn't know yet that she had definitely committed to this trainer yet. So I'm asking her questions as if I'm going to try to help her figure out if this trainer is the right choice. And I asked her questions about the trainer and what she was doing and how it worked and what was included and how the program worked. So she was telling me, okay, so it's a 6-week program. It's a board and train program, but she didn't call it that. She said the dogs, she's going to go stay with her for 6 weeks. She's going to work with her, and then she's going to teach everybody, all the family members that are involved in the training, how to control her at that point. And hopefully it works. And if it doesn't, then I'll know I did the best I could and I gave it one last shot. So that was her thought process behind this. So I asked her more questions about the training methods and everything, and she's, I don't really know. I'm not really sure how it works. I don't know how she does it. And I was like, she's going to keep her for 6 weeks? And she's, yeah. And I was like, how much is it? And she goes, it's $3,000. And I was like, okay, so then why did you pick her? Like, how did it go? Did you have a consultation with her? And she's, oh yeah, I talked to her on the phone. And then we met up on a video chat and I talked to her some more, and she was so understanding and she was so kind, and she was like, I totally understand how you're feeling and how you must be struggling with this decision with your dog and feeling almost guilty because your dog bit you and you feel like it's your fault. I get it. I really think I can help you. I completely understand. I'll be there with you every step of the way. I'll talk to your daughter. We'll work together. We'll do everything we need to do, and we'll give it our best shot. Like, she was just very reassuring and understanding. And that is why she picked her. I actually, after that, before I even realized that she picked her, looked at the dog trainer's website, and I found out more about how she does the training and structures the programs. And it's definitely not the trainer that I would have picked for her. Definitely not. I hated her website. That sounds awful, but her website was written very badly. There was no personality in her website at all. There was nothing to indicate that she was really going to be able to accomplish these results that my friend needs with her dog. But just from the standpoint of making that kind, likable impression on my friend when she got in touch with her, that made all the difference. It didn't really matter how great her marketing was overall. Now, imagine if the dog trainer had truly great marketing on top of it, but she used the one thing that is going to be probably the biggest tipping point in whether or not a dog owner makes a decision, and that's how much they like you and how comfortable they are with you. So that's not to say that this trainer will get every sign up just solely based on her personality. She's going to do a lot better if she has all of the other pieces. She knows how to explain what she does, if she knows how to package what she offers really well and price her services really wisely, and if she knew how to write her website really well, because those things do make a difference to a lot of people. People don't always make decisions always on the same criteria, and those things are going to be important to a lot of other people. So she might have gotten my friend to sign up for this $3,000 program last week, but then the next day lost somebody because she didn't know how to explain how she does what she does. There's lots of different factors involved, but this, again, just illustrates one of the things that we as dog trainers sometimes underestimate. And what service businesses in general just underestimate is the power of adding this skill to the other marketing skills that you have. So there's this kind of like behavioral psychology book that I love, and it is written in a way that really helps people understand why people make decisions with buying as well. And that's one reason I love it. I'm such a nerd about this topic. I love learning about the reasons why people do what they do. So this book is called Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion, and it says the strength of that social bond is twice as likely to determine product purchase as is preference for the product itself. So in other words, they're more likely to buy from a person they like than the person who seems on the surface to have a better product. As another example of that, I've actually had people tell me that they have joined my workshop. When I'd ask, like, why did you decide to join the workshop? A lot of people would say different things that they thought they were going to learn. But one of the top answers has been something along the lines of, it just really seemed like you really cared. It seemed like you actually cared about my success in my dog training business, and you seemed like you were empathetic toward my problems and you understand what I'm going through. That kind of thing definitely has an impact for every kind of service, and it affects all kinds of decisions. And some people might say that these are skills that you either have or you don't. You're either likable or you're not, or you might think, I'm really shy, or I'm an introvert by nature, and it just tends to hide my likable characteristics, or it's hard for me to show them. And while that might be true, that some of these things come more naturally to some personality types than others, it's a skill. It's something anybody can learn. That's why there's books written about it, because people develop these skills of being able to be more understanding and empathetic and have these characteristics that people like. Since I'm a nerd about this topic, this was really hard to break this down and keep it simple, but Jason and I sat down and we were writing the outline for this video, and we broke it down into 3 main things that you can do that will help make people like you more, and which will, again, directly impact how many people sign up and how much you can charge and so many other things. Some of these things are common sense, but they're not really common practice. You might not even realize that you're not doing them as much as you should, maybe because in face-to-face situations with your potential clients, you're worried more about what you're going to say and how it's going to go, and you might even be just nervous about not forgetting a certain detail. Or you might be just so tuned into what you're interested in, which is analyzing the dog's behavior from a diagnosis standpoint, figuring out what's going on, what they need to do, what the owners are doing wrong, all that you forget to do these things that are, at the time, common sense, but you're just not even realizing you're not doing them. So just because they're common sense, don't brush them off too quickly without really thinking about whether or not you can improve these things while people are subconsciously evaluating you on your character. The first one is one of those super obvious things, and that is to smile more often. And I know that sounds like something that should be just automatically known, like universally, that smiling is a good way to make people like you, but there's a lot of, I think, really fascinating kind of science and names and phenomenons and effects and things like that impact whether or not people decide to buy something from you based on how much and when you smile. This is one way that we can trigger a variety of effects and phenomenons in people. People tend to like people who like them. And if you smile at them, you are, number one, acting like you expect them to like you anticipate their acceptance. It makes you seem more confident in yourself, which makes you act like you like them more because you are behaving like you are more confident. You expect them to like you. You anticipate acceptance. So if you're smiling in that way, like you expect them to like you, then you are more likely to appear confident, which makes it easier for you to act like you like them. So it goes in a cycle. And if you give the impression that you like them, automatically, they are more likely to like you. A lot of articles say that even if you're not sure how a person you're interacting with feels about you, act like you like them and they will probably like you back. Another thing about smiling is that it is also contagious. It's an automatic thing that it triggers neurons in the brain to mirror you. So you're basically, when you smile, it's more likely for them to smile back at you, which triggers other things in their brains, all these chemical reactions and stuff. So bottom line with all this is to just smile more often, pay attention to it consciously, smile when you meet them, smile when they're talking to you, just seem content and behave like you like them. And this is funny because so many of the dog trainers that I know who do really well in their business and tend to bounce back from challenges the fastest and avoid struggles the most are the ones who are more likely to just be interested in people in general. Like they are the ones that actually love the dog owners as much as the dogs, because that's a natural tendency for them. So even if that's not a natural tendency for you, you can become better at this by smiling more. They will feel like you like them and you understand them more, and it will definitely affect how many signups you get. So the second thing now is to compliment them. And this can be a little bit tricky if it's something that you are doing that's not a natural habit for you, because you don't want it to come across as overly flattering them. But a few well-placed compliments can do a lot of things for people psychologically as well. One of them is that it will tend to make people feel that you guys have a common ground, that you have something that you are the same in some way. And that kind of similarity thing tends to be also a big emotional and mental trigger for whether or not people like somebody else, if they feel like they're the same in some way. So if you go to somebody's house and you say, "Oh, I love the way you decorate. Where did you get that table? That's awesome." Then they feel like you have the same taste. Like it provides a little common ground and similarity in a unrelated thing that tends to make them more likely to like you. So giving them some kind of well-placed compliments, just a couple here and there, something that you can say sincerely, is really beneficial in building that kind of rapport from the psychological standpoint of that familiarity. Another kind of side point of complimenting is just noticing things that are interesting to them and being interested in those things, because you like people who seem to be like you, even if they're not really like you. You like people who seem to be like you. Be interested in what they're interested in. Another way to do this is to notice something that is the same about the two of you. If you like golf and golf clubs, then bring it up and say, "Oh, I love playing golf. Where did you get these clubs? Where do you like to go?" Jason actually mentioned when we were talking about this that if you drive up and you see a sports team sticker on the back of their car and it's the same team that you like, that's going to be a major thing for them when it comes to choosing who they're gonna work with. If you're an Eagles fan and they're an Eagles fan and you talk about that together when you first meet them, he said it's almost like you're part of the same family if you like the same sports team. And if that person is going to come down to choosing you, another Eagles fan or a Cowboys fan, guess who they're going to pick? So again, this is another one of those things that is pretty obvious when you think about it, but it's good to have that confirmation that these things have such a big impact on people psychologically, because otherwise you might think of it and not do it, or think something and not say it because you don't fully realize the impact that it could have. So now that you know, you'll be more consciously aware of it and be more likely to do it. So the first one again was to smile more often, and the second one was to give compliments and notice things that are the same about you that you can talk about. So building that common ground. The third thing is to ask questions. The fundamental truth here is that people are more interested in people who are interested. So if you want to be more interesting, you should be more interested. And it's funny because I have a reputation in the family of making single friends, and I have some single friends that sometimes would ask for advice on, or just talk about trying to get people interested in them or whatever, and I would always say that and be like, okay, you talk about yourself too much. You need to talk about them. Be interested. You can be more interesting by being interested. People like to talk about themselves. So another story about this is I was actually at a neighborhood barbecue. The neighborhood, a couple neighbors down, this older couple had this kind of big neighborhood thing, and the daughter of the older couple, who was about my age, came to visit, and I sat down at a table and I started talking to her, and I was asking her questions about her job and her kids and all of these things, and we sat there for about an hour, and she just kept talking, and I asked her a few extra questions. By the end of the conversation, she was like, you know what, I hardly ever make another female friend. Most of them are just so fake. I have a hard time getting along with people. I really feel like we could be like best friends. I like you so much. I want to hang out with you every time I come visit. I feel like we really bonded. And I was like, that's so sweet. I'm so happy that you feel that way. And I left the conversation. I was like, she doesn't know anything about me. I don't know why. I had to think about it. I was like, what does she even like? She clearly just wanted to be heard and had somebody empathize with her and think about her and be interested in her, and hadn't had that in a while. And that made a huge impact on her. That just feeling that empathy and having somebody just listen to her. When you ask dog owners questions, it's not just about being empathetic and pulling all their personal lives out of them, but if you ask them the right questions, what will happen is an effect called self-disclosure, which basically means that people feel a more deep connection to someone that seems to understand them, that seems to be interested in what's going on with them. And that's why you should ask questions that have to do with how their dog's behavior and how their goals with their dog's behavior impact their everyday life. The more deep you get into that, the more they will share with you deeper information about how their dogs are, how their behavior and lack of listening and things like that are affecting their everyday life. And the more they share that stuff with you, the deeper the connection will feel to you, because they will feel like more about them. It's that self-disclosure thing, almost like they're telling you secrets. If somebody tells you a secret, or you tell somebody a secret, you automatically feel like a stronger connection to that person because you know something that nobody else does. So even though they might have shared this information with other people about how frustrated they are and how their dog's lack of listening is causing all this chaos in the house, and they're embarrassed in front of their neighbors or whatever it is, if they share that stuff with you, someone they basically just met, they're going to feel more connected to you and more understood. So ask them questions that have to do with those impacts. Ask them, pull that information out of them, the emotional stuff a little bit more. Ask them, what is your day-to-day life like with your dog because he doesn't listen? What kinds of things can't you do? Is it impacting your freedom? You can even say things that are just empathetic, that are just statements like, oh, that must be really frustrating. That must make you feel like you can't really enjoy having a dog like you really wanted, and you can't have the freedom of going places with your dog like you really wanted. Saying things like that to make them feel understood. So they're like, yeah, exactly, you get it. If they feel like you get them, that goes a long way. So in these videos, again, we've been talking about the main things that affect your client attraction skills and how many clients you get, how much you make per client, a whole bunch of different things that get affected by all of these things. So without these skills, you can sometimes get by getting some tips on where to advertise, or putting this specific sentence on your website, or by being given a good tip on some way to structure your programs or something like that. Just getting these little tips along the way, sometimes you can get by. But without these major cornerstone skills that you have to have in your marketing abilities, then everything just falls apart eventually. And then if you have a challenge like what's happened with all the shutdowns, then it just knocks you down completely and you don't even know where to start. So you have to have these things in place to build on as a foundation. So while we've been talking about all these kind of like cornerstone skills that you have to have, and then there's also all of these little tips on where to advertise and specific words to use and how to structure your programs, and like little things that also make a huge difference when you fit them in and build them on top of the foundation. Imagine if you had both. Imagine if you had all of the main things that you need, all the big picture skills that you need, and also all of the stuff that fills it in, all the skills about how to write something or how to price something or where to put your advertisement so that it pulls in your most ideal clients and what numbers to use in your prices and all kinds of things that just add to your fundamental cornerstone skills. Thanks again so much for watching, and make sure you post comments and questions for me down below so I can help you apply what you've been learning. And I'll talk to you soon.